Um, Thank you so much for joining everyone today in the session. I hope I'm clear, and if at any point you see any issues with audio, please feel free to ping in the chat. Um, Indian Road Safety Campaign is part of SOLVE Foundation, and today we have arranged this webinar, which is the 15th webinar of our Journey to Safety webinar series. We are part of the SOLVE Foundation, and we work towards the mission of making Indian roads safer, focusing on reducing the number of deaths caused by road crashes. To achieve this, we are working with 1,500 plus institutions and 25,000 plus volunteers across many states in various domains such as law, policy, medical, technical innovation, awareness, etc. We also work in close association with several ministries like MORTH and state traffic police, United Nations, World Health Organization, etc. Our main aim is to change the scenario of road safety in India. The main reason why we started this webinar series is in an effort to bring all stakeholders of road safety on one platform during this pandemic. We have completed, as I said, 14 webinars when we have covered various issues of road safety with experts from universities, healthcare, ministries, and corporate institutions. We've also had participants from different sectors and all over the globe. We have had several speakers in our sessions like Eva Molnar, Rashmi Urdvashi, Ravi Shankar, Abhay Dhamle, who's the former Joint Secretary, and Piyush Tiwari, and several others. We have covered many topics, and if you're interested, please visit our YouTube channel and you can find all our recordings there. I'd like to welcome our host for the session today, Ivy Rao sir. He's our board of advisory and the former MEO and director of Maruti. Um, Sir, I'll hand over the session to you from here onwards to all the participants. If you have any questions for our speaker, please put it in the chat and we will address it at the end of the session.
Thank you, Swati. Welcome to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Kulanthayan, all the participants and friends. Good afternoon. I'm very happy hosting this webinar, the 15th in the series um, on road to safer roads being organized by IRSC. And this particular webinar is about making a difference with road safety education. Road safety, as you all know, is a complex subject and needs contribution from all stakeholders to make roads safer for users. IRSC is organizing these webinars with different stakeholders to understand everyone's views and suggestions for making roads safer for users. As usual, I would like to briefly talk about various issues of general interest to set the context. UN had declared a global plan for the decade, the decade ending this year, of action for road safety and recommended 5 pillars: road safety management, safer roads and mobility, safer vehicles, safer road users, and post-crash response and emergency care. The Motor Vehicle Act has been modified with a lot of improvements and also increasing the penalty for not following any of the traffic rules last year. As we all know, there is no evaluation of the accidents taking place every day to understand the reason for accidents. Only records we generally have are from the police complaints, which are basically made from point of fixing the responsibility for the accident and does not help analyzing the accident. As per MORTS data about road accidents in the year 2018, indicates increasing trend in number of accidents, about 4.6 lakh accidents and 1.4 lakh fatalities, with Tamil Nadu contributing maximum number of accidents and Uttar Pradesh maximum number of fatalities. The big concern is the fact that 72% of the fatalities are with the mid-age group who are in the most productive phase of their life, which is a setback for our growth. About 35% of accidents involve two-wheelers and about 24% cases involve four-wheelers. And fatalities also show similar trend. 75% of the drivers involved in the accidents have valid driving license. Though the number of fatalities and accidents are much higher than due to COVID, there is no close monitoring of accidents taking place and analysis to reduce the same the way it's being done for COVID. I don't like comparing COVID problem with, road safety and road accidents and fatalities. The vehicle users are still not very well aware of various features provided for driver assist for safe driving. In case of two-wheelers, users, as per recent survey, only 30% drivers and 10% pillion drivers use helmets. And in case of fatal accident, 29% were not using helmets. The question is, why should a two-wheeler user wear an helmet properly? Not just for following traffic rules, but the driver safety, driver's own safety. This awareness is still missing. Many of them still think that they are doing this to avoid the challan by cop. They don't feel they are doing this for their safety. Same is the case with seatbelt wearing in case of passenger vehicles. Based on survey done last year, some 28% drivers and 4% rear seat occupants wear seat belts. In case of fatalities, 38% drivers and 62% passengers were not using seat belts. When we look back over last decade, India has considerably improved our road infrastructure, the automobiles being made almost at par with Europe in terms of safety features, awareness amongst the road users, and post-accident emergency treatment services. Though there is an improvement in all these areas, but still India has not seen any improvement in the reduction in accidents and fatalities. We have still a long way to go to reach the ultimate target of zero accident fatalities. Last week we had Dr. Ravi Shankar from JP Research, the only organization in India which is trying to analyze the accidents technically to understand what went wrong leading to the accident. He spoke about importance of data for arriving at right action plan. Today we have Dr. Kulanthayan Mani, Professor, Department of Community Health, Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences, University of Putra, Malaysia. He is based in Serdang, Selangor, Malaysia. His main research is on traffic safety and children's safety. His interest in children's safety brought him to be engaged with Safe Kids Worldwide organization, and in 2011 he took the lead in getting UPM to be member of Safe Kids Worldwide by establishing Safe Kids Malaysia. Since then, Safe Kids Malaysia has been actively engaged in research and community engagement programs in promoting safety among children in the country. He works on preventing unintentional injuries, mainly focusing on traffic, drowning, falls, and burn injuries involving children. He is a member of National Road Safety Council of Malaysia, chaired by Minister of Transport Malaysia. Globally, he is recognized and serves as a member of the advisory board of Child Injury Prevention Alliance based in Ohio, USA. His organization joined the Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety in 2013, and since then has been actively engaged with this alliance. He mainly introduces intervention programs and evaluates these interventions as part of his academic and research needs. This approach won him recognition with three international awards to his in his recognition in. Now I request Dr. Kulanthayan Mani, Executive Director, Safe Kids Malaysia and Professor University of Putra, Malaysia, to make his presentation and give initial remarks. Over to you, Dr.
Right, thanks, Mr. Rao, and a very good evening to everyone. Thanks to Swati as well for organizing today's session, and especially to Indian Road Safety Campaign organization for inviting me today, mainly to share in terms of road safety education programs. Swati, can I have the slides being shared?
Sure, sir. Give me a minute.
Right. So the outline of today's talk, if you see, I'll be touching a bit on my organization, just to share with you about our organization, and then I will zoom into the topic directly on road safety education. So I'm from Universiti Putra, Malaysia, which is based in Serdang, Selangor, Malaysia, very close to the capital of Malaysia, near Kuala Lumpur. Right, can I have the next slide? Right, can you just skip on? All right, very good, thanks. So this is where our campus is. We were established in 1931 as a School of Agriculture, and later in 71 we were upgraded to Universiti Pertanian Malaysia, or we call it as the University of Agriculture Malaysia, and later was renamed as Universiti Putra Malaysia in 1997 because we have a diversified field of studies in the campus. So the campus carries about 27,000 student population, offering 80 bachelor degrees, 7 diplomas, and we offer postgraduate programs at master's and PhD level, including master in public health and doctorate in public health, which covers 289 field of studies across all faculties. In terms of ranking, QS World University ranking, at this point of time, we are ranked as 132 in the world, and in the country, we are ranked number 2. Can I have the next slide? Yeah, for those who haven't been to Universiti Putra Malaysia, just to give you an idea, how do we look like? Okay, so this is the campus. We call it as Green Campus because initially we were called as University of Agriculture Malaysia. So do visit us if you do visit us, and it's a beautiful campus. Yeah, can I have the next slide? Right, zooming into the Faculty of Medicine and Health Science, where I belong to. So this is the faculty which hosts the organization called Safe Kids Malaysia, which we established in November 2011, going to be close to 10 years. So that was established by a signing of MOA between Safe Kids Worldwide, which is based in Washington, US, and Universiti Putra Malaysia. And mainly we work in terms of preventing unintentional injuries among children. So unintentional injuries, it depends on the country. For Malaysian scenario, the burden of the injury is more towards traffic, followed by drowning, fire and burns, and then sports and medication. This is where we are. But of course, slowly we are also venturing into intentional injuries in terms of child abuse, and then in terms of cyberbullying. Okay, because it is quite difficult to actually differentiate between intentional and unintentional, because sometimes the factors are quite common. So we started with unintentional, but we are also venturing into intentional. So this is the faculty where we are and where our organization is. And we also have our own hospital. It's called the Teaching Hospital of UPM. Right? Can I have the next slide? Let's go into the topic of the topic for today is actually on road safety. So I would prefer to use the word road crash in terms of road accidents, as you know that this is a preventable injury. Let's keep to the term road crashes. As I share with you Malaysian data, please try to synchronize with your own country data. And I believe we have participants from Nepal today and also from Malaysia and from India. I'm not sure if there's any other countries, but then try to connect with your own country data. So I'm just sharing with you road crash data from Malaysia. As every country will have reported crashes, I'm sure you will also have some unreported crashes. And the quantum of unreported crashes can sometimes be double than what you have reported. So then your burden will be much more higher. So the whole idea of showing this data is to show to you that every 55 seconds we have one road crash reported. And then the outcome of these crashes in terms of road fatalities, if we look at the next slide, it will show us about 6,000 plus road fatalities. And if we go by minutes, every 85 minutes, one fatality. These figures would be multiple times more higher for countries with high number of population, especially in India. And any countries which has high number of population, as well as any countries which has high population of motorcyclists will usually record high number of road crash and high fatalities. So just to keep that in mind first. And any countries which has good public transport system, especially rail-based public transport system, generally will record low number of crashes and low number of fatalities. So just to keep that particular two scenarios first, while we move into the next slide. Right, the resources that we use are mainly from the World Health Organization. They have a wealth of resources which is freely available online. So I kindly invite every one of us today. If you haven't been to the World Health Organization website, please visit their website. You have plenty of resources, good resources, reliable resources, and very rich resources. So please visit their website and you'll be able to download. And for today's presentation, I'm using my information based on these resources. Therefore, I thought it's good for me to share this piece of information. Right, can I move to the next slide? Right, coming in terms of road safety, there are many issues to be discussed, many solutions to be explored. But today's topic was trying to focus on road safety education. So the question now arises the need for road safety education, and let's look at the next slide. Right, so why road safety education? That's the question. If you look at the literature reviews, education interventions, not only on road safety, on any injury agenda, they have a reservation in terms of education intervention. Okay? They have a reservation because not many studies being done as well in this field, and among those studies being done, not many studies have shown that it is working as well. So just to keep that as a caution as well. Okay, keep that as a caution first, and then while I move along. So let me put a first point here between education against enforcement. People prefer to move into enforcement because that gives us the return compared to education. But let me just explain over here. Education gives us return, but keep that in mind, it's a long-term return. We can't see changes immediately, but it takes time to change people's habit, to change people's practice until it becomes a culture. But it is sustainable. The moment we can change their practice into habit into culture, then it becomes sustainable. Then that's why I say it's a long-term investment. Compared to enforcement is a short-term benefit. You get immediate benefit. You can change a person's practice from unsafe practice to a safe practice. The moment they see enforcement agency, then immediately an unsafe practice becomes a safe practice. Those who are not wearing seatbelt, immediately do wear seatbelt. So to save people's life, we need enforcement immediately to save them. But the challenge in enforcement is it is not sustainable. It is not sustainable because the moment we bypass the roadblock, there is a tendency for us to go back to the old practice. Therefore, if we combine both education and enforcement, then we get immediate return through enforcement, and with the hope that practice becomes habit and habit becomes culture, and then we can sustain it. So I would prefer, this is my main point, education to move along with enforcement or any other intervention for us to have quick returns, and sustainable. Okay. Then the next question is why road safety education should come in is, if we have new knowledge and new info, then I feel there is a need for us to go into this intervention, to use road safety education. But that's one of the points. And as this bullet number 2 will tally with bullet number 3, because if your baseline is already high, your level of knowledge is already high, then it doesn't warrant for a road safety education to go in, because your baseline is already high. So then any extra increase in that baseline, we need to put in a lot of resources. So if we want to move into road safety education, based on the subject matter, just look, is the level is actually pretty much low. If it's pretty much low and it's a new knowledge, then I feel there is a justification for us to move into road safety education. And the next one actually is, I would prefer that the content of the road safety education should be more on teaching survival skills based on age and needs. Because the moment people learn education on the road safety education, they should be able to use the education in order to make them much more safe. So those are the survival skills. So rather than being too general road safety education knowledge, because if it's too general, then they won't be able to actually put in practice. But if you go specific on survival skills, then yes, then it makes a difference. And then I have some reservations as well. In some countries, where traffic enforcement agencies also do education-based programs. But if we look, in these countries, when traffic enforcement agency runs education programs, the content will be more on traffic regulations and meanings of traffic signs instead of survival skills. So that's why on that ground, I always prefer that education programs be run by non-enforcement agencies, and enforcement agencies, preferably if they can focus on enforcement activities. That is my take over here. The next reason is because enforcement agency, only enforcement staffs can do, because only they have the power to do. And we can't do, the public can't do. But education, everyone else can do. So if enforcement agencies start doing education, then they have to leave enforcement and start doing education. Or the time for enforcement is reduced and they start moving for education. Then we lose along that line, because education, most of the other parties can do. So on that ground, I kindly prefer that enforcement agencies focus on enforcement, because that's your territory, and which we can't go into it. And at the same time, if the other organizations can do on education, that's one. And we can also look in a larger perspective that actually enforcement is also a kind of education. If we do education, that means it's a more soft approach. But when the enforcement agency does enforcement in the name of education as well. So sometimes we have children, when we tell them don't do certain things in a nice way, that is normal education. But then when they still repeat the same problem, and then we may say in a much more stern way, but the intention is for their safety, intention is for good, but we enforce it. So along that line, I always say enforcement is also part of education. So if we can cross this message to enforcement agency, don't worry, please do enforcement, because your enforcement is also a kind of education. And then the last bullet point, that is where I wanted to link up here. We have to be extra cautious. The whole idea of road safety education is to make people safe. Not in any way possible, it shouldn't increase their exposure. We shouldn't make it in such a way that children who went through road safety education program, now they feel they are much more safer because they have the education. Therefore, they increase their exposure to be on the road. Because once they increase their exposure, then we may have a high rise in terms of crashes. So the idea is not to increase exposure, but to maintain with the existing exposure, and then to make them safe. So keep that in mind, and let's move to the next slide. Right, so there are many stakeholders here, and to make it work, we need everyone to play their role. Let me zoom into actually on parents and education institution. Can we move to the next slide? As teachers are teaching road safety education in the school, parents at home should re-enhance the same message in the same direction. if parents are being seen as role model in addition to teachers role model, these both role models should move in the same direction. If teachers teach something in the classroom, but parents practice slightly different, then we may put our young children in a conflict mode. They won't be able to actually appreciate and understand what's going on. Say example, in the classroom, the teachers say traffic light red color means stop, green means go. But if while the kids traveling with the parents, if when the traffic light shows red and parents still go, then you're putting the children in a conflict situation. Because for the children, both parent and teacher are almost equivalent. And when one person say red stop, another person are practicing red goes, then you put them in a conflict. So this is the place where parents have to go in the same direction with the teachers. If not, we won't get the maximum benefit of this intervention. That's one. And I kindly request that the parents should be spending more time together with the children at home, looking at what's being taught in the classroom. Because bearing in mind that there is a limited time the teachers can spend in the classroom, and the teachers has 40 kids or what in the classroom to be to spend maybe within the 30 minutes. So they may not have a very specific time to entertain every kids. So they can go in generally, but at home, if the parents can relook at what was the topic and can re-enhance the topic at home, that'd be great. To make things to work much better, I would prefer the teachers training institutes in every country should start training incoming teachers, the new teachers, which is going to go into the system with road safety education. Then maybe after about 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, we should be having teachers who are well equipped with the knowledge on road safety education, and then they should be able to teach well. Ken, next slide. Yeah, then let's look at the government authorities as another stakeholder. Yeah, next slide, please. Right. So the government authorities, this is a group which I see who are developing the content. The content development is very important. It's something like you have a patient, so the medication has to be well, and the medication has to suit to the age of the patient as well. Okay, and it has to be appropriate by age and by needs. So the content is very much important. As much important the content is, the delivery process is equally important. I'm very much caution over here. Sometimes we overspend time in terms of content development, but we lose our grip in terms of delivery process. So if delivery process is not well done, I'm worried at the end of the day, we may conclude, they say the program is not working, we may conclude the content was not good, or the whole program was not good. It was not the program was not good, it was the delivery which was not well. So delivery has to be done pretty much well as planned, and there must be someone to monitor this delivery of intervention. If there's no one monitoring, we may lose the whole investment. We will lose this. And I prefer always that we should be building in evaluation of a particular intervention, because we are not sure yet whether the intervention we are giving to people, is it working? Is it giving us results? Or if it is not giving us results, which area is not giving us result? And because we need to troubleshoot, we need to address that gap. So if we don't do an evaluation, we won't be able to further improve our intervention. So keep in mind that while we are developing the intervention, at our point, we must have full confidence with the development of our intervention that this intervention will work. That is the first screening. If at the development stage itself, we don't have full confidence that this intervention can make a change, then I feel it's completely unethical for us to introduce on the ground. So on that ground, I repeat again here is, at development stage, whoever who is developing it has to have full confidence this intervention, this medication, this treatment, this intervention can make a difference. It is just now the next stage of testing it on the ground. So once we test it on the ground, we keep on monitoring to make sure that delivery is perfect as how we want it. And after that, if still it doesn't give us a result, then we can say, of course, maybe the content is not appropriate. And let's relook at the content. There could be some components in the content. It's not the whole content will be out. There could be just some component in the content which was out. Can we move to the next slide? What can we do? Because we have a lot of NGOs registered. In every country, we have a lot of NGOs. how best that we as NGOs can play our role together with the communities. And I see both parties are almost similar. The first thing, what is common between every one of us is all of us are responsible, all of us are road users. So every one of us, if we can be responsible road users, then I think we can make a difference. And the information that we can share to every road users, while Swati is getting the slides, let me just share what we can do as road users in terms of crossing messages to everyone is to tell them that children has some limitations. Children, see children as children and not as a young adult. Okay, that's the main message. And the limitations that children has, especially those children below 8 years old, if you see, is their vision. Their vision is just 1/3 of an adult's vision. So just bear in mind, if you put a child below 8 years old in a junction, his vision is only 60 degrees. So if any vehicle is approaching, say on the right hand side or what, until the vehicle falls within the 60 degrees vision, the kid can't see the vehicle approaching. So then having the kid alone on the road below 8 years old is actually endangering them. So this kid has to be accompanied by an adult. Similar goes to hearing. They can hear the sound, but they won't know the direction of the sound until the source of the sound gets closer to them. So you put the same kid at the junction. The kid can hear the sound of an approaching vehicle, but the kid won't know whether the vehicle is coming from right or left until the source of the vehicle gets closer. But by the time the vehicle gets closer and the kid knows the vehicle is coming from the left, it is too late for the kid to avoid a crash. So same thing goes to safety perception. The kid will never see a vehicle will danger or will kill them, because every one of us have car in the house. So if it is really a dangerous product, we won't have it in the house. That we won't be traveling in the car. So the kid won't see the car as a possible means to kill them. That's their perception. And the kid has limitation in terms of identifying whether the vehicle in front of them is a moving vehicle or static vehicle. They won't be able to differentiate until the vehicle gets closer to them. Then they know, oh my God, this is a moving vehicle. I thought it was static. So thinking it was static, they may cross the road, but then it is a moving vehicle, and then quite difficult for you to avoid a crash. And the other limitation they have is they can't judge the speed. They may think if they see a vehicle, they can stop immediately. The same thing they expect that the moment the car sees them, the car can stop immediately. But every vehicle can't stop immediately. After you press your brake, you need certain meters to stop. Example, if you're driving at 60 kilometers per hour and you press a brake, you need about 37 meters to stop your vehicle. So that one the kid doesn't know. The same thing goes distance. The kid can't actually estimate the distance from an approaching vehicle which is coming on your right or left. They think it's far, then they cross, but then it's actually pretty much close. So these limitations the kid has to be shared with adult road users, so that they know that when they see kids on the road, or when they are approaching school areas or anywhere where kids are moving, they will be extra caution and they will reduce their speed. The whole idea is if every vehicle can reduce their speed, will make them safe, as well as every road users who are sharing the roadway also safe. So if every NGOs and communities, we can cross this message, trying to get every vehicle speed down, and then trying to share its limitations that children has, then in one way or another, we can make our roads safe for everyone. Can we move to the next slide? Zooming into Malaysian experience, where we ran our road safety education before that. Yeah, this is a Malaysian experience, I think, where the whole thing, how it started, the Malaysian experience is, it was based on Asian Development Bank's exercise way back in 2002. Next slide, please. So yeah, the whole exercise started from the Asian Development Bank's exercise. It started in year 2002, where they commissioned studies in every 10 Asian countries. And the study when they did in Malaysia, they were looking at 15 sectors, trying to see how good are we doing on 15 sectors. And one of the sectors is road safety education. Yeah, can we just keep on moving the slides? For those who are interested with the resources, you can look for this resources. Important slide, I would say. This was the exercise which made us to decide why we need to venture into children education. So as they were looking at 15 sectors in Malaysia, There were some sectors we were doing pretty much good, especially like driver training and testing, publicity campaigns or what. But there were two sectors where we didn't do well, which is one is road safety education, and the next one was vehicle standards. So we only scored 10 out of 100. So that was the changing point. That was the turning point. So since then the government wanted to look at, okay, this is the gap that we need to close. So let's venture into road safety education. So that made the change. Okay. Then after that, what we did was the government introduced a pilot program. Can we move to the next slide? So the beauty behind this exercise is they started with a pilot program because we're not sure yet how good is our intervention. So rather than rolling it out the whole nation, let's do it pilot and to see whether it's working. So this pilot was done within about 10,000 population of students. We call it as primary school kids between age 10 until 11. And we tested road safety education in two languages, in the national language, Malay language, as well as in English, because we were not sure which medium to actually venture. So we thought, okay, let's use both mediums and see which one works out well for us. Okay, the idea here now is road safety education is not as a subject by itself, but to embed into the language subject. Because if you introduce it as a new subject, then you're adding burden to the existing load of education syllabus that we have. So that was not agreeable to the Ministry of Education at that point of time. They said no extra burden, no extra subjects. But if you can embed into existing subjects, then that's fine. But the beauty of road safety education is practically you can embed into any subjects you want. You can embed into maths, you can just name it, you can embed into many subjects you can. But the reason why we choose language subject was because the number of hours of language subject in the existing curriculum is much more compared to any other subjects. So that means we have a larger platform here. We have more opportunities, more available slots for us to take up. So that was the main justification why we choose language-based subjects. So this was what we did. We developed our own module, and then we start teaching kids. Can we just go into the next slide? Just keep on going because it's just images. So we were talking about visibility issues. We were talking about traffic light issues with the kids. Right, keep on moving. Right, we were talking about pedestrians and looking at right, left, and to make them safe. Just keep on moving slides. Okay, just stop here. So we started as a district pilot, 2004, and the result, it showed us an increase in terms of the output level. Okay, where the knowledge level increased, attitude improved. Okay, and practice also was there was an increase in practice. But so keep in mind, we had improvement in terms of output and we had an improvement in terms of outcome. Okay, to that extent. So it worked at district level. Then they wanted to, let's do it at national pilot. National pilot, what we mean is, in every state they choose one district and they tell us to run it similarly. Okay, just to make sure that the whole nation, every state, there's no difference, and then let's see if we can get similar results. And again, it showed us the similar trend. It worked, and then that was where we were able to convince Ministry of Education, and look here, it is giving us result. Therefore, if we can introduce it as a national rollout, it can make a difference. Then the government decided in year 2010, they started national rollout for children's age 7 first, and follow up in the following year, they added up children age 7 and plus children age 8. So it went on until children age 12. And then later on, until today, now we have been touching to children age up to age 16. And we would appreciate the Road Safety Department of Malaysia, where beyond that, they have also ventured into preschools and kindergartens as well, into the pilot programs. The two organizations in Malaysia, Road Safety Department and the Malaysian Institute of Road Safety Research, they are doing a wonderful job in terms of developing the content and then teaching the teachers, training the teachers, and getting the teachers to run the program. So I should thank that two main organizations. Yeah, can we move to the next slides? Right. So evaluation has to be done because we need to know that is it working. So I would say that so we have input, the content, the process is very important. My main caution is always at the process. We have output. Not many studies looks at outcome. If you Google, if you look at literature reviews, not many people look at health outcome because it takes time, and as well as impact. So if we can have a full cycle up to impact, that would be great. Yeah, can we move to the next slides? Right, so these were the evaluations that we did. So at the output level, we look at knowledge and attitude. Most of these studies, if you Google up, you will be able to look at people pick up knowledge and attitude, because that's a quick one that you can do, which is fine enough. But I would prefer that if more studies are also done observed practice, because the practice is where it's going to make a real difference on the ground. It should be more safe practice, and then it should result in terms of health outcome. There should be reduction in terms of number of crashes, because the moment if the crash numbers don't go down, then the whole aim of why we were running it actually is not achieved. It takes time, but eventually it should be there. So keeping in mind of that is the data we should be looking at. So I would always hope that funders should come in and funders should fund up to the outcome level, okay, up to the health outcome level. So then we can really show that, hey, look here, this intervention is able to bring down the crash numbers. Can I have the next slides? So I'll just quickly show you some of the results. Let me just move into practice. I think knowledge and attitude, there are a lot of papers out there in the literatures, so you should be able to pick it up. So for practice, we had some huge challenges. The best that we could do was this. Of course, we can. I'm sure every one of us can further improve it. You should be able to further improve it, because in one school you have many students. You have every age. Okay. When I mention here year 3, that means they are children's age 10. So we were observing children among 10 years old, 11 years old, and 12 years old. But bearing in mind that everyone will exit the school at the same time. So just imagine everyone exit at the same time. Sometimes it's difficult to differentiate who is 10 years old, who is 11 years old, or who is 12 years old, because the content of the intervention is slightly different for everyone. So we need to measure them separately. So what we did was we created this tag and then we put it into the school bag, and we have the next slides. And we observed almost 3,000 kids. Okay, so this was the tag we had, and then yes, can we keep on moving to the next slides? So this was the tag that we fixed it to the school bags, so that when the kids carry the bags, we can easily identify, okay, this is year kid, and this is year 3, this is year 5, this is year 6. We had many options. We thought of giving them caps, but then we were worried if you give them cap and then they don't wear the cap, or they forget to bring the caps, or they change the cap with another friend, then it will be very, very difficult for us. So the best that we could do is we put it up the tag to their bags. Hopefully they don't change it. Yeah, can we move to the next slides? And this is how we observe it. We have a pre-post. Before we start the intervention, we observe the safe practice, and whatever we observe has to be in line with the content of the intervention. We cannot be teaching something and we observe something else. No. So whatever we teach, we see among whatever we teach, what can be observed, what cannot be observed. So among whatever we can observe, we just observe on that part. And so we look at the very, very clearly, we only observe based on safe and unsafe practice. We look at what was the percentage of unsafe practice before intervention, and then has that reduced after intervention. So this was what we did. Okay, can we move to the next slides? So this was the areas where we were stationing our staffs, okay, our numerators, and this is what we do. Okay, can we move to the next slides? Right, quick results, just to give you a glimpse of what we had. So among children's age 10 and age 11, yeah, in terms of practice, improved. There were more safe practice after intervention. But among children's 12 years old, no significant difference. Before intervention, after intervention, no significant difference. So this is where, when we get this result, then we know. That means our intervention worked in terms for children age 10, children age 9 and age 11, but it didn't give us result for age 12. So then we know that, okay, age 12, we need to relook back at the content or at the process. Something is not giving us what's supposed to give. Can we look at the next slide? Then we look at type of schools. In Malaysia, just to share with you, we have the national schools where the medium of teaching is using the Malay language. And we have the Chinese type schools, and we also have the Tamil type schools, where the medium of teaching is in Chinese language and Tamil language. So now, three different type of school. The intervention was delivered using the national language, the Malay language. Okay, so now look at the results. So when we use the Malay language and then in a Malay language school, the results were pretty much fine. So this gives us an indicator that looks like, okay, maybe the children are quite good in the language. Therefore, when we are teaching in that language, they're able to understand and they're able to grasp it. That could be one reason why it didn't work in a Chinese type of school, because the contact hours for the Malay language is much lesser compared to Chinese language. So their grasp in terms of the Malay language may not be as strong as in national school. So that could be one reason why we didn't get much better results in Chinese school. But somehow or other in Tamil school, it had a similar trend with the national school. So maybe in Tamil schools, even though the language is different, but could be the kids, the children's there, they have a reasonable command of national language as well. So now we know where to zoom in. If for the next phase, we know we have to zoom in extra in Chinese type of school if we want to make a change. Yeah, can we go to the next slide? Okay, now we look at this slide is slightly different with the earlier slide. The earlier slide was for children 9 years old. This slide is for children 12 years old. Children 12 years old, if you see, no matter which type of school, every school didn't give us the result that we wanted. That means this indicates it is not the language. It is completely children 12 years old. Something is not working in that group. Is it the content or is it the delivery? We are not sure. But at least now we know, we don't have to search very far. We know that we can zoom into the children's 12 years old. So this is how the results were helping us for the phase 2. How do we address it? Can we go to the next slide? Next slide, please. Okay. Now we'll look at, in terms of specific content, we were going into contents now. Earlier one was the overall behavior. Now we wanted to zoom into which content gives us result, which content didn't give us result, based on observed practice. So now we had the practice 1 until practice 6. There were 6 practice that we observed. Only 2 practice for year 3, or for those children 9 years old, which gave us good result. In terms of holding a hands, where we asked the adults to hold the children's hand to cross the roads and everything, because the message was a children below age 8 or young children, for you to be alone on the road is unsafe. You have to be accompanied by adult. That was the message. And that gives us result. The adults were holding. And the seatbelt usage also increased. But the other 4 practice didn't work. Crossing at the zebra, crossing at an appropriate pedestrian crossing didn't work. Safe crossing practice, side steps, no. Leaving car on the curbside, no. Wearing child motorcycle helmet, no. So now we know that what are the specific practice that we need to enhance further in order for us to get the results. So this was the findings which help us. Yeah, can we move to the next slide? So this was year 3. Can we look at the next slide? This for year 5. So year 5, we know there are 3 practice we need to focus. Yeah, can we move to the next slide? Year 6, again, keep in mind earlier results. Earlier result itself showed that year 6, no matter which school didn't give us result. Again, similarly, if you go specific itemized behavior, which behavior was giving us, which didn't give us a result, almost all behaviors except safe crossing didn't give us the result. So a lot of work has to be done in year 6. Practically, the whole content has to be relooked, or the delivery has to be relooked. Either way, year 6 is not giving us the result that we are supposed to. Next slide. Right, so we have those results, keeping in mind, and I will just share with you at the end, towards the end, what made the difference between year 6 and then year 3, year 5. So now this is the health outcome, which is not many people do it, because it's costly and it takes time. So this was the crash surveillance that we did. Can we move to the next slide? Right, so a rigorous intervention study. We had an intervention control. It was a quasi-experimental for those who are familiar with the study designs. We follow up every 3 months. We follow up. We ask them, were you involved in a crash the last 3 months? Okay, so we followed 67,000 students for 2 years. in both arms. Intervention group 33,000, control group 33,000. The whole idea why control group is to see that, to make sure that any changes that happen is purely because of the intervention. So the whole idea of control group is to make sure that we can specifically make a conclusion that any changes here is the reason is because of this intervention. Okay, but why we need a large population that to follow? Because the incidence of crash happening for children is not that high. Okay, because the prevalence was pretty much low. Therefore, we need to have a large base in order for us to pick up those cases. Okay, but we were quite lucky. We had that particular funding from Ministry of Transport. So that's why I would always say thank you to the Road Safety Department who made that funding available. So let's look at the findings. Where do we stand? Can we have next slide, please? So this was how we did the surveillance. It was a picturized questionnaire so that the kids can understand, because just keep in mind, children age 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Not many people may be able to read and understand, but if you put in a picture wise, they may be able to understand. But despite providing picture, we read the question individually for them and we explained to them the question, and then only we allow them to answer. And keeping in mind, every 3 months, we were approaching back the same student to get them to answer the same question. Okay, next slides. Yeah, so this is what they do. Were they involved in a crash or no? So bicycle crash, motorcycle crash, public transport crash, every specific vehicle we asked them. Okay, next slide. Right, okay, this is what happens is the moment a kid says, yes, I was involved in a crash, say bicycle crash, then we will pull aside the particular child, and then we will interview the kid to get more information. First thing is to reconfirm whether the kid understood really. When they say yes, did they really understood? And the moment they say yes, then we try to get further detailed understanding of the crash that they were in. So this is the specific interviews that we run with them. Okay, next slide. Right, so this is how we followed through the children's age 8 and age 10 until they reach to the next year, because it's 2 years where we follow up. We started with 33,000, but after 2 years, for every group, we only managed to reach 20,000. So there was a drop off of 10,000 along the way for 2 years. The idea here, when we say 20,396 students for year 2 students, that means we have 8 points of data. That means every points of surveillance they participated. They never missed anything. So the 10,000 drops was because they missed some points. So this was the data which finally we analyzed. Can we move to the next slides? Okay, now look at the graph, the intervention and control group. So both groups showed a decline, okay, over time period showed a decline. After visit 4, you see, that means after 1 year, close to after 1 year, the control group start going up and then will come down. So in any trend, in any injury trend for any control group, there will be a fluctuation. It will come down by itself, it will go up by itself, it will come down by itself, it will go up by itself. It will just be fluctuating by itself without any reasons. Okay, but for intervention group, if it is really there is a downward trend, there is a declining trend, and that declining trend is because of your intervention, because of your medication, because of your treatment, then it should be going down continuously. And that was the finding that we had. It was going down continuously. You can see, as we approach the 2nd year, it was going down pretty much low. Can we look at the second cohort group? This was for children age 8 until 9 years old. The next group age, okay, the statistical testing will show you a significant. Next slide. Okay, this is for the next cohort group, children age 10 until when they reach age 11. Similar trend again, downward trend for intervention group, control group. You can see going down, going up, going down. That's the trend. Can we move to the next slide? Again, statistical testing shows us. Okay, good. Right, good. Can I move to the next slide? Okay, so then we wanted to reconfirm, is it true that our health outcome data, which is showing the intervention is working? So to counter check our data, we use the police data, the secondary data. We didn't collect the data, the police collected the data. Okay, so we use police data just to look back at the districts where we ran the intervention. Is it showing a declining trend for the 2 years? Can we have the next slide? So you can see it here, it was showing, but then to make it much more clearer, the next slide will be more clearer because we use moving average. Okay, now you can see. The green is the intervention group and the red is the control group. The red, you can see, it goes up, down, goes up, down. Okay. Somehow or other for the intervention, it was moving slightly down, but then there was something somewhere July or what, it went up, but then after that it zoomed in completely down. If you look at December 2009, the huge difference between intervention and control group among the police crash data. Then we feel that, okay, then looks like the police data also reconfirm the trend that we had from our outcome. Can we move to the next slide? Right, just to have a quick figures in terms of a pedestrian crash. Just looking at crash only, before the intervention started in year 2007, we had 44 crashes in intervention group and control 34. But after the intervention started, first year of road safety education, we can see a huge drop in both. Control also went down, keep in mind. But the second year of road safety education, you can see control going up, but the intervention was almost stabilized there. Okay. This is in terms of the pedestrian crash. Can we move to the next slide? Okay. This was among age 7 till 12. Okay. Similarly as well, you can see after 1 year, if you do statistical testing, there's not much difference. There's no significant difference. But the next slide will show you after 2 years of intervention, you can see difference. As I cautioned you all earlier, road safety education takes time. Even 2 years is also pretty much early. Actually, sometimes it even takes more than 5 years or 10 years to really give you the difference. Can we have the next slide, please? We are getting closer towards the end already. So this will answer the certain questions that were initially remembered. I was showing you the practice figures. We had things were pretty much good for those year 3 and year 5, but not year 6. This is what we did. This is if we do process evaluation, then we can find out the answers. That's why I would always prefer that anyone who's doing evaluation, please do process evaluation. If not, we don't have an answer. We will be guessing for the answers. We are actually predicting those answers. What we found out was not all schools were able to complete the whole intervention. This is where I tell you the process evaluation. If you don't complete the whole intervention, then it's not, but the moment we evaluate, of course, you won't be able to show us the result. It's something that if you don't take the complete antibiotics dosage, and then I expect for you to have a reduction in terms of fever or your flu, of course, I can't expect that. So the whole package has to be completed. And also, if you look at this bullet number 2, for year 6 students, when we zoom into process evaluation, we found out that not all schools delivered the intervention. They didn't teach that. The reason is because year 6 students are sitting for public exams. The school wanted to teach only after the public exam over. So that was one reason why we didn't get any results among year 6 kids. Okay, because intervention was not delivered in some schools. So keep that in mind. And the third bullet, if you look at the dosage, we realized that the dosage was insufficient because it was just 40 minutes per week and it was just for 12 weeks. So if we can increase the dosage, we may be able to show good results. And for year 6, we realized was also our modules, our units were only 2. We were not allowed at that point of time to have more modules because it was a public exam students' years. Compared to any other year 3 or year 5, we had more modules. So again, if dosage was less and if dosage was not delivered well, and then you can't expect any results. Again, the next slides, getting closer to end. Can we have next one? Right, we were able to show knowledge increase, health outcome also increase, police statistic also showed a reduction. So therefore, we are quite confident. Road safety education, when we do it at a large population, it's a public health. I consider this as the largest public health intervention for road safety. If we go specifically by needs, by age, and teaching them on the survival skills, I believe that road safety education can make a difference. promising that the delivery has to be done pretty much well and the content is appropriate by the age needs. And the last, I believe this is the next will be the last slide. Yeah, can I have the last one? Great. So the challenges and improvements. The module has to be reviewed periodically because keep in mind, the technology changes for the vehicle, for the road systems. When we developed this module way back, 20 years back, at that time, mobile phone usage was not as serious as now. So we didn't have mobile phone usage in the module. But when we had a review after 10 years, we included mobile phone. So similarly, the content has to be improved because challenges are changing. And every stakeholders need to believe that this intervention works. That's the biggest one. It cannot be Ministry of Transport's program only. It has to be owned and shouldered as well by Ministry of Education and everyone along that particular package. It has to be our program. And teachers and parents need to be good role model and consistent. Teachers as well has to be consistent because it would be very odd say the teachers say everyone must wear a seatbelt, and when the kids see the teachers leaving the school without wearing a seatbelt, you are putting the kids in a conflict position. So teachers and parents, please be a good role model. Monitoring the delivery is vital. To re-enhance these teachings, this curriculum, we can have the core curriculum aspect where the road safety clubs are open in school to keep the momentum, okay, to keep the momentum going. And finally, this is the bullet point I would always say that put it into the curriculum, because once it is in the curriculum, it can always be tested in the public exam. Any content, any modules being tested in public exam will always get the attention of the children, the parents, the teachers, the school. The moment it's part of public exam. So that message has to be very clear as well here. Okay? And then, can I have the next one? Here we go. So thank you. And in our language, in Malaysian language, we say terima kasih to everyone here. It was a sharing session. And we will always say thank you to Indian Road Safety Campaign for giving us this opportunity. And my email address is there. If you have any questions, anything that you would like to clarify, by all means, please do reach us to us. And I will just stop here first. Thank you very much.
Doctor, thank you very much for your very interesting presentation, and it's really very informative and educative and encouraging for us. I have actually one question. Your whole model of training kids depends upon the assumption that the teachers and the parents are role models. But unfortunately, the situation in many cities, many places, is the parents, is the elders who are not following most of the traffic rules, and obviously the children are traveling with them. So I'm slightly confused as to how to make elders, the parents and the teachers very compliant to the rules and follow all, for them to be disciplined to teach the young kids. Do you also have this problem in Malaysia, or is typical of India?
Right, thanks, Mr. Rao. I think the problem is similar in any countries. That's why all of us prefer to introduce education intervention, and all of us prefer to introduce it among children, because that we know that that is a group which is quite easy for us to mold, and there is high chance for us to shape their behavior, because knowing that challenges to change behavior among adults is very much challenging, because a behavior or a habit has already been set up. It's not to say cannot, but then it's more challenging, need more resources. So we prefer to invest in children. Having said that, so coming back to Malaysian scenario, we choose a district which recorded the highest number of road crash among children. So that was the starting point. So you could explore on that line. So that was the district we choose, and then we choose as a pilot where we choose a population where we feel we can manage it, compared to choosing a very large population which we cannot manage it. So we choose a population of just 10,000 students for us to pre-test first and pilot it whether our intervention is working. Because sometimes we believe our intervention works, but does it really work? once it really works, then we can go all out to convince the policymakers. So until then, I would kindly request anyone who is introducing new intervention, please pilot test it first with a reasonable number of population which you can manage it. So we choose a 10,000 population which we can manage it in the highest recorded district in terms of road crash among children. So there was a buying in among the education sector because they know that that is a problem they are facing. Okay, that part has to be win first. So if not, there are too many challenges there. So we had a good buying in, and we had a good. We know that we can manage the situation pretty much well because it was a small population, and we ran the intervention. We had sessions with the parents to get their buying in as well. Somehow or other, God willing, everything worked on pretty much well. But of course, efforts has to be put in. So my take over here is challenges are there. Start with a reasonable population which you can manage, and use all means to reach out to the communities that you have there to make sure the parents are together with you. Then I think to a reasonable expectation that we can make a change. Okay.
Yeah, actually, my thoughts about this was slightly different. I mean, I had seen what happens in Japan, like the kids in preschool stage, they are first taught all these. I mean, how to follow various things, how to be a disciplined person. Like they are made to walk in handing holding each other's hands, and when they're crossing, how they are should look at both sides of the road, etc. They are, I mean, they start at that level, that stage. I think that is the age and when the kids pick up right habits. I think it's would be good because they generally follow those things forever. Maybe uh, that would. I was feeling that we should make the kids a role model for the elders to follow, because when the kids with this type of thought process sit with the parents, they will stop the parents from not following rules. I mean, that's what I was thinking. But I mean, the work done by your institute is excellent. And I mean, is it possible for I mean, the training module to be, I mean, to train people from India if the schools are interested to come and participate?
Yeah, I think we can explore on the line. I can connect you to the organization which is involved in this. It is called the Malaysian Institute of Road Safety Research. I think
Yeah.
once you start talking with them, then I think things can take it up to the next level.
Maybe we can approach them through our Ministry of Road Transport to get better traction. Maybe.
Yeah, by all means, please do approach them. And I would say that this road safety education program by the Malaysian Institute of Road Safety Research and Road Safety Department won the Prince Michael International Road Safety Award, if I'm not mistaken, last 2 years back. So a tested program.
Over to you, Swati, for question answers.
Pardon?
Yes.
Swati,
Thank you so much, sir, for the
you
handover.
can take up the question answers.
Yes. We have a question from the audience. Do you think there is a growing need to convey to people that road safety education does not apply to only children? It is for all the stakeholders.
Well, very good question. Road safety education cuts across everyone. Just that we expect high returns among children because their habits are not formed yet. So I would say start with children, and then as you see results, you can start targeting different audience, different target groups, different policy makers or what, with different contexts. Policy makers also need a kind of information to be crossed to them. So it's a completely different content, but everyone needs a different type of content.
So this is a question from my side. How difficult does the content making become as the age increases, like the children's age, as well as like parents, adults? Does the content itself, making the content and the content itself become complicated?
Wonderful. The whole process of developing this content, I think, took Miros about 1 to 2 years. But the beauty is there are many stakeholders involved in it. Mainly is we need the school teachers to be involved, because only the school teachers will know and able to gauge at that particular age how much can we push in, and to what, to, I mean, the type of language and the type of words we're going to use. They'll be able to tell us, no, this one, if you're going to tell them, the kids won't understand. So we need the kids, we need the teachers for that, and we need the technical people in terms of sharing the technical content. So when both blend in together, I think we are able to come up with something good. And usually after we have developed the intervention, after we have developed the content, they usually pilot test it in few schools first to see whether the kids can understand or not the whole content. And then it's being reviewed again, and then it's being further improved. So I'm pretty much quite comfortable with the content. And the content when they develop is also based on exposure. So we just look, example I give you to you. Say example, children age 7. So we just look at children age 7 in terms of transport, traffic safety. What are those issues they really face? So they will be traveling as a passenger in the car. So keeping that in mind, they're going to travel as a passenger in the car. So how can we make their travel in the car safer? What has to be done? That means if they need a child seat, then yes, then we'll be talking about child seat. If they need a seat belt, then we'll be talking about seat belt. So again goes, so at age 8, what then we say age 8, what do? Do they cycle? If they cycle, then we touch about the bicycle helmets. So we go based on that age and what is their exposure to the road crash, and then we try to zoom into what is a solution. Because if we provide solutions, then only they can practice the solutions. If not, it becomes a very general knowledge. So along that line, I believe that every sessions when they finish, they know that they have a take-home message. They know that if they're traveling by car, what they need to do. If they're traveling as a pedestrian, they need to make themselves visible. If they're traveling as a motorcycle passenger, what they need to do. They need to wear a helmet. What helmet? Child helmet. It goes along that way. Yeah, I'll just stop there first.
Thank you, sir. So we also have a question from Dr. Maya. So what is the age where post-crash response should be taught?
Oh, wonderful. Post-crash, we never touched about post-crash. We were touching about pre-crash and how can you during crash in terms of reducing your injury, not on the post-crash.
So do you have any idea as to when should it be taught to students, adults? At what age do you think is the right time to include this in a curriculum?
Right. I don't have a definite answer on this because we haven't tested anything along that line. But we can get some experience being used by the, say, International Red Cross or the St. John organizations. In what age do they start teaching in terms of first aid treatments? So if you go along that line, then to some extent you will be able to gauge what is the starting point for you to zoom in. Okay, but at this point in time, I don't have a definite answer, but I would say maybe secondary school kids age 13 and above would be a good starting point to look at.
So I'm just going to say that I think at least I remember having a course on first aid and things like that somewhere near my 8th class. So would it be a good place to include post-crash response, because I understand that all these can be included like in the first aid and all those kind of things can be added in there.
It can be pre-tested, no harm, because as I told you, I don't have an answer because we haven't tested it. You can test it first at one appropriate age that you feel it's reasonable. That's one. But having said that, that's one part. But in terms of our agenda, if we want to bring down the road crash number and road fatalities number, I think more interventions has to be done at the pre-crash and during crash, because the post-crash is only taking up about 3% of the problem, whereas the pre-crash is about 70% of the problem, and during crash is about 25%. So going by priority, I would always say pre-crash 70% stands the first priority, and during crash about 25% is the second priority. Post-crash is the least priority in terms of preference because the burden is too huge in these first two phases.
Yes, prevention is better than cure.
Yeah, prevention and during crash, because that during crash as well is 25%.
Yes. So I think I'm just going to summarize a lot of questions that were coming up when you were speaking, which is the license issuing. So should there be some kind of course, or I'm not sure how Malaysia does with respect to driving license, but if I have to take my own experience, I learned about the basic traffic signals, etc., when probably I was the age of probably 10. And then afterwards directly to the driving license, where we had to learn again, go through a small course, right? So is there something else that needs to be done before issuing licenses, so that we don't have such a long gap?
Uh, I would say that for Malaysian context, I would prefer that, of course, the content of the driving curriculum is always being reviewed. That's fine to adopt to the current needs. If we can move along defensive driving, that would be great. That's one.
Mhm.
And as well as if we can have a review after certain years. Because what happens now is the moment you get a driving license, that is for lifelong.
Yeah.
Okay, lifelong driving license. Okay, but what happens in 20 years down the line or 30 years down the line? Do you have the same safe skills to manage the vehicle? So that has to be relooked. That's one. But then the moment if you commit offenses, there should be a demerit system. We should be tied up together with your licensing. Then I think people will be more extra cautious. So I would prefer a demerit system based on the offenses to be tied up together with the driving license. So that then there is an opportunity to suspend the particular driver from driving because it is endangering himself as well as everyone whom are sharing the roadway together with him because he has committed over and above of offenses. The idea is not to penalize you, but the idea is to save you. So to hold you back from driving is because we love you, so that we want to save you. So take it along that way.
Perfect. So I'd like to close this Q&A with one last question, sir. I think the question came from some of the students. Does your university offer some road safety courses to become an expert?
Yes, we offer for road safety for postgraduate level for masters and PhD. Uh, that is one of our prime courses for postgraduate. So for those people outside there, for those who are interested in the field of not only road safety, but any field in injury prevention, say you're interested in drowning prevention, say fire and burns, medication safety or sport safety, anything that you're interested in injury prevention, at masters and PhD level, you're more than welcome to join Universiti Putra Malaysia. Uh, we have those courses. So feel free to contact me by email and I'll be able to provide you with those details.
Thank you so much, sir. If you have any closing comments, we can take that and then close the session.
Right. First of all, thank you for the opportunity given to me. I'm very happy that we had an opportunity to share with you all. And I can see some of my friends from Malaysia is there, some from Nepal. I can see Pushpa is there, and I believe a few more friends from Nepal, Bhagavati is there, and the Malaysian group is there, and all our friends from India over there. Road safety education, non-road safety education, any injury prevention education can work, but provided we do it in a correct way, in a right way. Two main points: get the content correct, and the most important, the delivery has to be done well. And please monitor it and run it in a pilot form first. And when your pilot shows result, then when you are confident, then only you make a request for a policy change for the national rollout. And be always caution, it should never at any point of time increase exposure. Okay, the moment it increase exposure, then you're going to have high number of crashes happening. So be extra cautious, and then God willing, everything will be fine. Yeah. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr. Kulanthayan, for your very, very interesting presentation. I think we should work on a way of collaborating with, I mean, what your country has already done and learn from it, so that we can also start the process of the road safety education in maybe junior school, so that the young kids who grow up, they will at least imbibe the correct habits of traffic rules, etc. And I think that is the only way how we can actually improve the road safety. They would become, I mean, at least they would be able to prevent their parents and the elders to not following traffic rules when they are with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you everyone for joining us. Please, we will drop you a feedback form. Please give us your feedback, and we hope you'll join us again next Sunday for the next session. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.